On July 30th, 2023, an Easyjet Airbus A320 touched down in France's Toulouse airport, landing around 90 minutes behind schedule. Now, for anyone who has ever travelled, delays are certainly nothing new, and this was the middle of the peak summer season as well. But it meant, of course, that the pilots were running behind schedule, putting a bit of pressure on them to get the aircraft back to London Gatwick as close to on time as possible. Now, Easyjet, like most low-cost carriers, only have a very short turnaround time, but even so, they obviously wanted to get this one done pretty quickly so they could get back into the air to try and make up any time. Now this, like many others, was just a normal rotation flight taking off from London Gatwick to Toulouse, turn around, head back from Toulouse to London Gatwick. Now, after landing, the aircraft taxied to park at the most northern point of the commercial terminal apron. This airport also doubles up as a major hub for Airbus, where they do lots of test flights and repairs and also make lots of their aircraft. But of course, it is also a commercial airport, but this is where they were parked, right at the northern point. After landing, all of the usual things started to happen, like removing of the luggage and the passengers disembarking, probably a little bit quicker than they would do normally, as remember, they had that tight turnaround and they were already late, so perhaps just wanting to get things done more efficiently than normal. The pilots would be chatting with the dispatchers and getting the preliminary load sheet so they can start setting up the flight computers and working out how much fuel they want to uplift before heading back to London Gatwick, and basically just setting up the McDo, the flight computers, just as they would do for any other flight. Today, Toulouse departures were taking place on runway 32 right, and the aircraft was parked at one of the furthest parking stands away, not helping them with their quick turnaround. Looking at the airport ground chart, the pilots could see they were parked at Terminal Delta, which meant it was going to be a long old taxi to the threshold for runway 32 right. So instead, what the pilots decided to do was try and shorten that taxi time a little bit, and they were going to depart via an intersection, November 2. Means it saves a bit of fuel, but also importantly saves some time. And as you can see, the takeoff run then available was going to be 2,300 meters. Now this distance is very important because then the pilots would put that into their flight computer software so that they can then get accurate speeds for their takeoff. They type in the takeoff run available, which is 2,300 meters, and then they can calculate the V speeds. V1, which is the speed after which they cannot stop and need to take off. VR, which is when they start to rotate, and V2, which is the safe climb speed with just one engine. Now the pilots on this occasion were using the app FlySmart, which is an app created by Airbus, and the pilots don't have to actually put in the takeoff run available. All they have to do is select the intersection they want to depart from, which, as they had said, was going to be November 2. However, if you actually look at the list of all of the intersections here, you'll see that there is a 32 right and then there is a 32 right November 2, and they are the only two options listed as available. And once they had selected the November 2 intersection, it gave them all the V speeds that they were going to use, and as you can see on the right hand side there's a nice little diagram of the runway, the winds, etc. But what there is not is a full airport map showing other potential intersections that may be around. Now, both the captain and the first officer independently run these calculation checks on their own EFB tablets to make sure that their figures both match and to check for any discrepancies. Both would have been happy with the V speeds and the departure from November 2 intersection runway 32 right. All of the speeds and takeoff performance information will have been entered into the box, so with the passengers now getting on, it's time for them to do their brief. Now it is at this point where they talk about the entire flight, whether they're going to have any threats that they could possibly encounter during their flight today, and also discuss the taxi route that they are likely going to take to their takeoff runway. Now, do you remember where the aircraft was parked? Right at the northern point of the apron. This actually meant that the crew couldn't see the runway or the intersections and taxiway layout from where they were parked. All they could do was create a mental model of where it was they were going to taxi, and the crew didn't discuss any particular intricacies or landmarks regarding their intersection departure during this pre-departure briefing. And as you can see, the taxi route that they were going to be taken, they couldn't actually see any of it due to the terminal in front of them and jetways. With the aircraft refueled and all the passengers now on board, I'm sure they were very keen to push back and get going as soon as possible. Now, of course, nobody can blame the crew for this. Every airline wants their aircraft to depart on time, otherwise they risk hefty fines from the airports, and this happens the entire world over. But now we've got a situation where the pilots are eager to get going and get the aircraft up into the air. A brief which perhaps has left out some rather important information with regards to exactly where it is going to be that they are taking off from. And if you're thinking that the aircraft will have a moving map or the RAR system which literally speaks to the pilots when the aircraft is approaching an intersection or a runway, then sadly you'd be mistaken. This was a much older aircraft, so there are no moving maps on this A320 showing the aircraft where it is on a ground chart, and RARS most likely was not installed. The crew most likely will also have told air traffic control that they can depart via the November 2 intersection to save them that little bit of time, and they were given the clearance to taxi by air traffic control to November 2 and hold. Both pilots will have known more or less where they were going. It was a straightforward taxi with only a couple of turns. However, what happened next was perhaps a little bit unfortunate and didn't go anywhere towards helping them in what is known as confirmation bias.
Easyjet A320, cleared lineup and takeoff runway 32 right.
This very early takeoff clearance by the French air traffic control was given to the pilots just as they were abeam November 4 intersection. So in the high workload environment, the running behind schedule and a perhaps rather improper taxi briefing, this call coming at just this particular time gave the pilots confirmation bias that they were abeam intersection November 2, which is where they had planned to depart, which meant they now had 500 meters less runway ahead of them for the takeoff roll, which neither pilot noticed. The pilots both commenced the takeoff roll, not realizing anything was particularly wrong. However, what it did mean is that the aircraft rotated with 500 meters of runway to go and passed the end of the runway at a height of just 180 feet. The air traffic controllers had not visually monitored the aircraft either, and so too didn't pick up that they had departed one intersection early. Now obviously it would become very obvious to the pilots that something had gone wrong. However, the aircraft rotated, climbed out safely, and then continued onwards to its journey to make a safe landing at London Gatwick. The Air Accident Investigation Branch cited 3 reasons as to why this all had occurred. It was a high workload and an expeditious mindset, limited attentional capacity and suboptimal situational awareness, and confirmation bias. Now the point of the investigation, and indeed this video, is not to blame anybody for the incident, but to highlight things that could potentially go wrong and prevent them from happening again in the future. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I always look forward to reading those, particularly surrounding this incident. And if you did enjoy this video, also be sure to check out this one here. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, and of course if you are new to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so you don't miss any of our future videos and live streamed flights. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next one. Bye bye for now.